Hello, what's up everybody? It is the Dark Conservatarian, and I just had these quick thoughts that I wanted to get off my chest, as I have just recently listened to the audiobook, or at least an audiobook of Delgado and Stefancic's Introduction to Critical Race Theory, as that is like, or at least that is to the people anyways, that has been cited as a source of authority by the actual critical race advocates themselves. Whereas they be like naysaying, generally speaking, Robin DiAngelo and Ibram X. Kendi, even though I think that there is some debate about those, especially with Kendi. But nonetheless, Delgado and Stefancic, I actually listened to their audiobook. It wasn't the official audiobook, it was actually this Microsoft Sally reading of it. You guys know what I mean when I say Microsoft Sally, right? It'd be the one female robot voice that your PC would a lot of times come with, that would like vocalize a lot of the words on the text on screen that you would want read to you and whatnot. Yeah, somebody decided to do it that method. Have all the text, and I mean all of it, read by Microsoft Sally, including all the citations, like the citation of this claim is sourced by this book and that and the other one, and so on and so forth. It even gone so far to read the individual periods. When there was like a long pause in the statement right there, and there was like 2 periods in a row or 3 periods, it would go like ... or ... Yeah, it was a little bit hard to get through just by that alone. I mean, you think that would be hard enough to get through just of the fact alone that it is saying something that you like massively and probably even cringingly disagree with. But no, it's because it was like hard to follow with the robot voice that made it kind of hard to listen through. I mean, it's kind of give and take. At least there wasn't the pretentious smugness of an actual person like reading the book on an audiobook. But nonetheless, yeah, that's how I listen to it. I'll have it linked down in the description box below, and I suggest that you all go ahead and check it out yourself if you want to like fully know the information for yourself that I am speaking right now. As I believe in steel manning, or whatever is the opposite of a straw man anyways, because steel manning, that means that you're misrepresenting a person's beliefs to make them look good, whereas straw manning means you're misrepresenting a person's beliefs or arguments to make them look bad for the sake of your own arguments. But anyway, I believe in doing the opposite of straw manning, representing a person's beliefs as much as possible so as to be honest and to not give your opposition ammunition to say, oh, you're strawmanning, so therefore I can like just call you a cunt or dismiss your claims entirely for whatever, for those reasons alone, you know. But anyway, I suggest like listening to it yourself. It was about 4 hours, but nonetheless, here are my thoughts. And might I say, just first of all, I find it kind of cringy that one of the key things that was mentioned in the book as being one of the key facets of a critical race theory is storytelling, or I guess legal storytelling as they technically call it, which, how is that special to critical race theory? Like, people have been doing storytelling ever since the caveman days, and even whatever you want to call like legal storytelling. I bet that this was done way before critical race theory was even founded. As the earliest dates that I go hearing that critical race theory was found, it was like the 70s or sometime in the mid 20th century anyways. So how is this so key to critical race theory? Like, okay, maybe it is one facet of critical race theory that's required for it to be called critical race theory, because there is some overlap within the beliefs. But nonetheless, my thing with the whole critical race theory debate is the whole issue of what's so special about critical race theory that differentiates it from any other sort of ideology. Because like I said in the video where I was reviewing the Gothics debate, the debate on critical race theory on her channel, I got saying that Aaron and Sam, it almost seemed to me that they were like explaining just normie leftist narratives on race, on systemic racism, on white privilege, particularly here in America, etc. Just repackaged in a fluffy quite bluntly, pseudo-intellectual term, that being critical race theory. So it did not sound anything so special and different from regular leftist narratives on race that we've been hearing ever since the 90s. And that's what this book felt like a good portion of the time anyways. That is what this book felt like it was doing. It was just telling me that a lot of the things of that are part of critical race theory is the idea of what am I trying to say here? Is the idea are these ideas, these same ideas that America still has racism, is still systemically racist, etc., things that normie left liberals would be saying about America ever since the 90s. Except for one thing I will say. There was one particular part within the book, like at the 1 hour and 50 minute mark, I think it was. Here, I guess I'll go back, open back up Discord as I just closed it down. I think it's 1 hour and 50 minute mark, in which that the book, the writers were explaining that there is one sect of critical race theory advocates that go basically advocating for it's 1 hour 40 minutes and onward. That's where I had bookmarked it here on my Discord server. But nonetheless, 1 hour 40 minutes and onward, it was explaining that there's this, in fact, one sect of critical race theorists. Like, there are two different sects of critical race theorists. There's the racial nationalists, more specifically non-white racial nationalists, and then everyone else. I can't remember the exact term that they use to define everyone else, but you can go ahead and listen to it back yourself. And more specifically, they were talking about black nationalists, how that black nationalist CRT advocates, they go advocating for more gun ownership within the black community, which is like, okay, all fine and dandy. And some other things, but the one thing that definitely raised an eyebrow was the idea of some certain public schools being set up in a way so as to specifically advantage or help out at least black people as opposed to white people. No wonder why CRT gets called anti-white. I mean, this book, the writers in this book, Delgado and Stefancic, they were not at all condemning this sort of mindset of these black nationalist CRT advocates right here. It was almost like that they were saying, oh yeah, that's okay, that's all fine and dandy and whatnot. So I haven't heard a whole lot of explicit, at least, anti-whiteness throughout this book, except for that right there. That one part where is saying and advocating that, oh yeah, these black nationalists then want to advantage public schools for black people and not for white people, and even exclude white people. Yeah, that's all fine and dandy. Does seem rather anti-white. And by the way, to all the Karlin Borisenko fans out there, just because I go saying and condemning, pointing out and condemning some facet of what I see to be anti-whiteness, that does not mean that I am pro-white or am condoning of people who call themselves pro-white or alt-right or any other sort of white identitarian for that matter. You can be anti-white while at the same time not technically being pro-white. I do not consider myself pro-white. I do not consider myself pro-white power or anything else like that. But that aside, nonetheless, not a white supremacist just for pointing out and condemning what I see to be anti-whiteness. And another thing that the book seemed to be advocating and implying a whole lot was the idea of hate speech laws. It was pointing out, oh, this amount of this hate speech that happens right here, and this hate speech that also happens right here, and was he even calling for laws to be putting down that kind of speech, what they call and define to be hate speech. Like, they were mainly sticking their criticism to racial slurs, which I realize of how fuzzy of an idea that sounds to a whole lot of normies within our political sphere right here, to be banning the usage of racial slurs. But here's the thing, is if if you start banning racial slurs, if you start to put forth laws that ban quote-unquote hate speech, and your intended target is racial slurs or the putting down of somebody just because of their skin color, you are opening up the door wide open for really any ideology that a person espouses, and the law and the people enforcing the law find to be, oh, this is hate speech right here, this goes against this race or that race or any other kind of arbitrary characteristic type group outside of race. It just opens up the doors wide open for that. And it was even like, it was in fact condemning the idea, as CRT advocates will be full on open about. It was condemning, the book was, of how that there are these laws that will not make a single mention of race and colorblindness, of course, saying how no, we actually need the laws, or at least implying anyways, saying no, we actually need the laws to be mentioning race specifically, so as to help out the minority groups and advantage them a little bit more over whitey, who happens to have the white community anyways, that generally seems to have a statistical advantage in some areas. It's not enough that these laws do not say anything specifically against non-white people. The law in fact needs to say something for non-white people, essentially. Needs to be enforcing some standard or promoting them, welfare, reparations, other stuff along those lines. And a little bit of a rewind in what I'm saying in this video, but another thing, while I'm on this note talking about CRT, I just recently got done listening to the debate that Actual Justice Warrior had with the SJW Debates guy, who I think his name is Justin, by the way. I'll probably have that link down in the description box down below as well. You go ahead and watch it for yourself. It's very revealing as far as the mindset and beliefs of CRT advocates. And this is not me trying to necessarily put down Justin or anything like that, but there is a certain point, I think about 1 hour and 50 minutes, some late point like that in the debate, in which he does go, okay, so Actual Justice Warrior, he goes criticizing the idea that CRT would possibly be anti-white, and he uses Ibram X. Kendi as an example of that, and he goes putting forth the little God, what's the word I'm looking for? The annotation that, yes, I understand that there is some debate on whether or not he's actually a CRT advocate, and a lot of people say that he's not, but just for the sake of argument, he goes continuing on saying Ibram X. Kendi, who says that we need there to be advantages for minority people over white people within this country in order to fix racism. And Justin, the SJW Debates guy, he does not go brushing that away, saying, no, that's not part of CRT right there, or at least not what I advocate for when I say that I advocate for CRT. No, he actually goes espousing apologisms for this particular point right here, that maybe, yes, there should be some specific bias for minority groups over whites, over white people. So CRT advocates, they go saying that no, it's not specifically anti-white, but there's just all these little clues that definitely do add up to the idea that CRT does almost seemingly is in fact anti-white. Like, maybe there is a specific sect of CRT advocates that is not what they're advocating for. Maybe that's not what they're intending anyways. And maybe it's even a possibility that CRT itself does not call for any sort of anti-white bias or whatever. Maybe that's a possibility. I will grant the benefit of the doubt, because I was originally listening to this debate, or listening to this audiobook for the original intent and purpose of finding out as to whether or not CRT is anti-white, and I did not get the explicit mentioning or even implication really that it is in fact not anti-white. In fact, it almost seemed to be leaning a little bit more towards that narrative that the right within America and the Western world has been generally putting forth about how and why they disapprove of CRT. So, yeah, and like I said, I did not find it right there. I am still looking right now for the damning piece of evidence from particularly the founders and core thought leaders of the CRT movement of how exactly CRT is in fact anti-white, presuming that that is the fact right there. Because all the CRT advocates, they go poo-pooing those assumptions, those accusations about CRT, saying, no, you're wrong, Mr. Conservatard, or whatever, or even libtard, as some of them will call people who are against CRT, because they have a problem with liberals and liberalism too, funnily enough. But the world be how it may. But yeah, that's my review on this book from Delgado and Stefancic. Stefancic, however you pronounce his name. Like I said, I have it linked down below. Go ahead and check it out yourself. And yeah, that's about all I have to say. I'm the Dark Conservatarian. See y'all later, and God bless.